This could be the moment. Where is Optic Gaming? 3 players on his team sandwiching big door, but Optic are out of dodge. Optic got out. They stuck to the rat hole.
You need 4 players on your team that really care. The dedication, the consistency amongst players is really important for a roster for actual long-term success. Day in, day out for hours on end, making sure you're all locked in, just understanding, and again, that consciousness, that mental awareness of, I'm actually trying to get better with my team. I mean, we were AM team and we were just practicing day in, day out as an amateur team against other amateurs. That's what we were doing. That's what we were always going to be doing. And that's how it is at a pro level. So it's like, if you want to become a pro, you basically need to be acting like a pro before you're even there.
Lucid decides to do here. Ball is going to be able to draw some players off the shot by into some odd locations, and there's going to be one pick over into dummies. Second pick the silo. Just going to jump out. No scope for the triple kill. Wait, can he do it all? Lucid, you madman! An overkill! He catches the snipe, and he takes over with it!
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I actually met you in HCS Orlando, and I got a picture with you.
Okay, nice, awesome.
I don't know if you remember, but I signed you signed my helmet.
Okay, yeah,
like
I do think I remember that. Yeah, backstage, right? Like by the.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, good to talk to you again, man. Nice. So what do you got? What kind of questions you got here for me?
So I'll tell you, I've been doing like aim training, and like before I start playing, I do like 30 minutes of aim training, and I do bots. I'm playing a lot of the clutch tourneys, and I do like ranked and stuff. I wanted to ask you if there's anything else that could help me.
How old are you?
14. I'm a freshman.
You're doing well in school. How you doing in school?
Good.
Doing pretty good. Nice. All right, so I mean I was in a similar boat with kind of being I think I was a sophomore in high school whenever I started playing Halo 5. And just like you, I mean I played Halo like you, probably just casually, just played everything, played some rank, played this, played that, playing in a tournament here and there, especially whenever I wanted to start competing. You're already doing the right things for the most part. Sounds like you're just getting involved, trying to be around the scene. You're obviously going to some tournaments, which is awesome. Just getting involved is definitely the first part. Aim training is good. The one thing I would say is that aim training it's good that you're doing some, like you said, you do like a 30-minute warm up. Perfectly fine. That's good. I definitely recommend that. The most important thing about getting better is just making sure that you're actually exposed to tournament style, or as close to tournament style gameplay as like you can kind of get to. So especially since you're not maybe playing as many 4v4 like actual tournaments, then ranked is going to be like the bread and butter. Like you want to make sure that you're participating in ranked as much as possible. And what I would do whenever I was in high school, and I was doing pretty well. Like I had great grades. So then that makes it easy with your parents. They're like, do whatever you want to do to have fun. That makes it a lot easier to grind. Yeah, that begins with it, and it already sounds like you're doing a good job of that. The one thing I'll say too to add, and this is kind of it definitely can be kind of boring, I would say to some extent, is the film. So I don't know how much you go into theater, if you go into theater at all, but that's kind of the homework of your gameplay. It's always fun to obviously just be in game and even do some aim trainers, whatever. Like you're just moving your thumbs, you're being active. But if you really do want to get better, you do need to go into your film. How often do you play every day or every other day or whenever you get on? How often are you playing for? Or how long are you playing for?
Like the least is like an hour, but I feel like an hour, 2 hours, maybe a day, maybe a little bit more.
Let me just ask you, is that how much time you can, or can you play like more or spend more time playing if you really wanted to? Or is that just kind of how much you are allowed to, basically?
Some days I can play a little more, like on the weekends I can play a little more.
Okay.
But usually if it's like school days, I play like an hour and a half, maybe.
If there is one thing I would say, since you do have a limited amount of time, it would be better to maybe even cut back on the aim training. If anything, it's good to just start focusing, especially right now, if you really want to start getting better, hop into ranked, start playing. Don't worry about everyone else in matchmaking. Just mostly focus on yourself, turn off the comms. It's good to have comms too if you are communicating, but sometimes people are just like toxic. Like people are just toxic and annoying to be annoying. We've all been there. If you're a younger player, talking in the lobby, like people just don't take you serious or don't want to listen to you, whatever. I would just recommend maybe not aim training as much. Instead of the 30 minutes on aim training, spend 30 minutes in theater. So if you only can spend like an hour and a half to 2 hours playing each day, spend an hour and a half playing actual matches. And then on the back end, you should spend maybe 30 minutes watching your gameplay. And then whenever you are in theater, the thing that I used to do is kind of skim through. And then whenever you die in game, that's when you pause and you rewind. So whenever you make a mistake, or just again, like just treat it like, oh, I died. What could I have done differently? That's what you should be thinking in your brain. it's good to keep doing that because eventually you'll start to understand more like, oh, I actually couldn't have done anything, or maybe it was my teammate that made a mistake, but there are plenty of things that you could have done differently by yourself in those moments. Just make sure you're staying alive. Make sure you can like kind of change your decisions a bit more in the future. Build that repetition of like, oh, I actually could have done this. I could have done that differently. And then implement it in your gameplay. Like try to just create some mental notes in your brain. So then you are, then focus more the next day you get on like, oh, I just remembered I played this game yesterday. I'm going to do this a little differently in this type of scenario. It's entirely up to you. You got to make sure that if you're actually doing that, you're implementing it, you're being conscious about it, being mindful of it. If you start doing that, you'll really start to notice your little mistakes and you're correcting those little mistakes very quickly.
Thank you. Because I've really been like trying to do like when I have I have coaching sessions, I tend to do like VOD reviews and stuff.
Yep.
They've really been helping me.
That's really good. And I think that's the next step for you is to make sure that you're consistently doing that even by yourself. Again, it's good to be more critical of yourself, especially if you're losing games, losing out on things in games. Again, those deaths, those losses, and then just like, what could I have done differently? Don't try to blame your teammates too much. Don't try to think about your teammates too much. Just focus on you, especially just for matchmaking. Matchmaking is just matchmaking, but it definitely will build up some good habits if you take that.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, what's it like being a pro and like going to all these like lands?
This is my job now. Like just like anybody has a job, this is my job. So gotta keep that positive perspective more than not. And just take it as like just like how I'm telling you to get those reps in, like that's and putting in that time, that's a job for me. It's my livelihood. So I take it as serious as possible. It's a great thing to be doing. It's a lot of fun. It can be a lot of frustration. It's a job. So it definitely, the more you play, instead of me just putting in a couple hours a day, like sometimes I want to, I need to put in 5-6 hours plus. I need to be doing that almost every day since it is my job.
I think that's all I have for now.
Those are great questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, Clutch.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Yeah, have a good one, man. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you.
So my questions to you, Lucid, and thank you for coming, of course, are regarding 8s in general, matchmaking in general, and scrims, as well as tournaments in general. So the biggest thing is what's the difference physically and mentally between each of those? In order to become the best at any sport in any way, is you actually have to be in the environment as often as possible, getting the reps in that situation mentally as much as physically.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely levels to just the investment that you put into just the different levels of play. I think matchmaking is more so like an extension of like even talking to Minnie, like talking about an aim trainer and just doing aim training, just shooting your gun. Matchmaking is basically almost an extension of that where it's just kind of going through the motions a bit. It's a little bit less thoughtful. There should be still some thought in there, especially if you have certain particular things you struggle with.
Right.
But it's more so just building the reps, hitting your shots, like making sure you're just staying consistent. And it at least still creates a somewhat similar environment, of course, as like a 4v4 tournament, but it's not going to be nearly as organized. And especially if you're playing by yourself against other solo, maybe duo queues, it's going to be that way. Now, the step up from solo queue is probably like duo queue or 4v4 stacks if we actually could be getting that at a higher level. But normally you can't really do that, I think, past 1800 Onyx at this point. But eights is probably the next level up from like just playing matchmaking. It's definitely more disorganized and especially different levels of play, but there's more. That's the 4v4 style. It's almost more matchmaking-esque because you're not a consistent team playing against another consistent team with plans in mind of like, oh, in A, B, and C situation, we're going to do 1, 2, 3.
Right.
We're not going to have like those set sort of ideas, and other people are going to have their different thoughts on how situations should pan out.
Right.
So that's why in 8s you almost get definitely a variety of how situations can get. It gets a lot more mixy. And so again, it's like that next level of like this is definitely more serious than matchmaking. A lot of times people are putting up some money to almost kind of create a little bit more of an incentive of like trying a bit harder, but then you still do have just a variation in the ideas of what should be going on in those sort of environments. And then after that, you get into scrims with your own dedicated team, whether it's fresh or not. That's why it is important to get a dedicated fresh team and stay together longer, because then you can sort of bank on like, I don't even have to go over as in depth as I need to sometimes, because it's more of that instinctual play as a team. It is more just locked in your minds without even having to say a word on like, okay, we're here. We need to push this, and then everyone knows the exact spots they need to go to. Once you keep getting those repetitions in as a team, and even at a higher level, it becomes way like those specific scenarios start expanding even more. You have to get even more in depth about what you want to do at a higher level. So the level of play for scrims can really vary to almost like eights, where everyone's just kind of running around, to being very strict and very to the point of how you want to play so that you can specifically understand what you're getting better at. You need 4 players on your team that really care, and you're going to get closer to that again with the actual scrim. That is why the dedication, the consistency amongst players is really important for a roster for actual long-term success. And so it's just the stepping stones, one after the other, of how much, again, the physicality of it, being making sure you're on with your team day in, day out for hours on end, making sure you're all locked in, and then the mental of just tying into that, just understanding, and again, that consciousness, that mental awareness of, I'm actually trying to get better with my team.
Right.
We need to do A, B, and C in this type of scenario. Or you can sometimes people just wing it. They don't even talk about it. And some people have a lot of success, even at a higher level.
Right.
There are a lot of people that just play that way, but that does not lead to championships normally. Like they're just kind of banking on like, I hope this happens, or I hope this works out, rather than like knowing how to make it work out is the biggest thing.
And with the Clutch Academy, and just kind of putting us in here, is we kind of do the in between eights and scrims to a certain degree, because we have so many people consistently playing in the Clutch Academy Discord. And for everybody watching, that's kind of the goal, is like, how do you make it to where you can bridge the gap between just playing eights and meeting people, and then becoming an amateur and maybe a professional in the future? And that's usually playing with people at a higher level, of course, as well as communicating with people. We have a couple of people that have actually made teams that are doing really well, and you'll be speaking to Professor next. He actually got top 16. What was it, this past Wednesday in the Open, but
Gotcha.
He was like at like a 1600 only like 2 seasons ago. How have coaches and teammates helped you build confidence, refine your skills, and reach the next level in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think coaches, it can vary a bit widely with Halo in particular, but I do think coaches have a great impact if you can allow them to, and if you have the right people. For us, obviously, having Lunchbox, it's like, he was a previous pro player. There's no reason to have any amount of ego when talking to him, especially about like strategies. Whenever, that's why he took a step back, because he didn't feel like he wanted to really keep up with the actual competitive side nearly as much anymore. I can't blame him. He'd been at the top for so long, and then you're just ready to, just put down the sticks. You're ready to kind of chill for a little bit, but he still has that mind, and like that doesn't just go away. I mean, even the skill doesn't just go away. He's still absolutely a beast, and so he acts as a fifth man. And some teams don't have that fifth man aspect, I think, from their coach. They are there to primarily be a stopwatch, and that's not necessarily the end all be all, but I do think it does make quite a big difference when you have a fifth person that you can confidently be talking strategies with, and confidently have serve as like a mediator amongst the team, talking over strategies, talking over comms in game, and actually directing comms in game, and being confident with what he is saying, and not shutting that person down. He is sitting back watching all of us, taking in everything, and then kind of being able to insert himself where he knows he needs to. I've had, different periods in this game cycle of like, there's different plateaus of understanding the meta and feeling like I don't need to go over film as much. But whenever I do kind of have that feeling like, oh, we need to play some catch up, or we're struggling here and there, it's time to start watching some more film. Somebody like Lunchbox is the perfect person for myself, at least, to talk to, and that kind of helps refine my idea of what I'm thinking, because I really do trust what he says. And once I feel like he and I can maybe even talk, once I kind of have an idea of like even what I'm trying to understand for myself, I can then bring it to the team almost more refined on like, this is the strategy that I'm thinking, and this is how I think we should play this situation, A, B, and C. This is where we need to be for A, B, and C, doing this for these moments. And so he really does, again, serve as just an extension, especially for the higher end thought processes going behind just understanding strategy.
What do you think about teammates, and what do you expect from a great teammate? I guess that would be it. What's your definition of that? And you as a great player, a teammate yourself.
A great teammate is just somebody that can, they can still be their own individual when it comes to the skill and the confidence and the ideas of how a play should go, but they are also people just on the map like myself and any other on the team of 4 that Once things get down to the wire and things go wrong and you look back at it, like you can confidently just say to each other, like, yo, I think you did this wrong. I think we did this right. This is what I think we should do. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it's a tougher conversation. Sometimes it's a lot more anxiety driven, trying to get those conversations rolling. Sometimes people are harder to talk to, and then sometimes they're easier to talk to. It's never just like a one tone that fits all, and like one situation or one sort of conversation piece that always just like works. But at the end of the day, I think everyone can kind of come to the conclusion, especially when you're on a team, is like, look, we're all trying to get better.
Right.
So whenever, if you are failing or just failing consistently, or there are just certain issues that are prevalent consistently, that just means that like, okay, we need to just like take a step back and like humble ourselves a bit. It's time to like realign with changing our strategy somewhat. And we need to actually look at it together and take in that feedback together. There are some things right and there are some things wrong that all of us are saying. It's just a matter of coming to the same conclusions. Sometimes there are individuals in situations that are making a lot more mistakes. And then sometimes you're the one making a lot more mistakes. And then it's just important recognizing that.
Right.
That's definitely the way I try to approach it. Is like, I feel like I make a lot of really good plays, but I'm also a person in the heat of the moment where I don't realize what I'm doing sometimes. So it's like, I need someone to call me out. And then I'm also going to call somebody out as well if I'm seeing them make mistakes. And that's the way it needs to be. That's why the ego, it's good to have an ego because you need to be confident, but you need to have especially a lower ego when you're doing that sort of VOD film review and you're also struggling. That means that there is a gap. There is something to overcome. And that means that you have to take the criticism. That means that there is something to be learned when that is the case.
At the end of the day, we might look at y'all from the outside in and say, hey, they're pros and they're all, egoed out. But being able to be humble and being able to talk to your teammates and your coach honestly and take criticism, if you want to call it constructive criticism, is truly what makes you the champion from the beginning to the end.
I'll just get into it. What's up, Ben? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Doing good.
Was there any turning points in your amateur career, per se, where something changed or a massive turning point that really launched you forward to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was. There's definitely a few, but I think the primary one is it's pretty early on where there was definitely a really perfect combination of things going on. I mean, I definitely think I had the skill and the passion and the drive for it, where put in a lot of just unseen work before going to my first event. And then luckily I was still teaming with Joey like pretty much right away. And we had a pretty solid roster of like top end players and we were already competing online pretty well. We even won a couple like open tournaments at the time, which didn't really have pro teams in Halo 5. So, we already had some good signs like, wow, I could make some money playing Halo. That was already like a good thing. But we went to our first event. And, I mean, we got top, I think it was considered still top 12, but we were basically like the 10th team. And we were pushing pretty well, but that was our first event in Vegas in 2016 and did pretty well, had a pretty good showing. We upset some legacy players at the time that definitely had competing for a while. And I had gotten a message from L-Town out of the blue, just like congratulating me. Like he was on Luminosity at the time, just saying like, wow, like good shit, like keep it up, like basically keep grinding type of thing. Once I saw that message at our first event, I mean, I was like, all right, I'm still going to stick it out. Like I'm going to do my thing. Like I wasn't planning on stopping anyway, but it was just, it was a really good reaffirmation. I mean, getting to the event in the first place was already, I'd never been competing. I'd never been doing anything. And luckily we had some good backing, at least just to get us to the event. And we didn't have to pay for anything. That was very, very lucky for us at the time. I mean, I was 17, just still in high school, going to my first event. And, parents didn't really realize what was going on. This was all fresh and new, even compared to nowadays, or like the pro scenes for games. Like people and parents even just understand more now. Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the turning point, was just the grind, like getting to the events and then just showing up and showing out at the events. That is the main thing that I think everyone does understand, but that is the biggest driver of like, I didn't have to make any crazy connections with like pro players or other top AMs beforehand. Like I played in some eights and just played consistent and kept, I feel like, a pretty straight head on for myself and stayed, like to think, humble, not trying to like have any crazy ego or ego anybody in particular, just kind of kept to myself and played the game. And the actions always speak louder than the words at the end of the day. It's good to make connections and just, be friendly with people. And I think that is what got me to, get like that sort of L-Town message. And then we eventually talk and one thing leads to another, and then I'm on a pro team. Luckily for me, it was quick. It was a lot quicker than I feel like some people normally do get in. So we were able to make it happen from there, pretty much.
So like just getting down to the grind, getting to the events, being a good person.
Absolutely. I mean, the events and the lands are what matter the most. Online tournaments are always going to be great. Like that is your practice. That is like just the go-to on making sure that you're going to show up to the event. Hopefully more practice than if you're just a matchmaking guy only playing eights, like that type of thing. Like you don't want to show up unprepared. I mean, we were AM team and we were just practicing day in, day out as an amateur team against other amateurs. That's what we were doing. That's what we were always going to be doing. And that's how it is at a pro level. So it's like if you want to become a pro, you basically need to be acting like a pro before you're even there. And that was with the habits as well. I was playing matchmaking a lot. I was doing a lot of like VOD review, film review, and so that just never changed.
The next question I wanted to ask was, day by day, is there anything you do outside of the game that you think has helped you in game?
I think something out of game primarily is the just like physicality aspect, just making sure you're moving, staying a bit more active. I think I've found my best performances is just whenever I feel more comfortable, more confident in myself, just like going to the gym a bit more, just getting out in some walks, like just doing that kind of stuff, balancing a good, like healthy in and out of game relationship, making sure that I'm not just inside all day, every day, like kind of isolated like that, even though, I'm still on stream or talking to people or talking to my team, like that's not enough. Like it's good to just get outside. It's good to have that balance outside the game, because if everything is always dependent on the game, then like your entire mindset I think strictly becomes the game, and you're going to have bad days or bad weeks even sometimes, or a bad tournament, and it's like you don't want that to be your end all be all. That's why you need to have other aspects of your life that you are still progressing and staying on top of, and that kind of balances you out, I think, a lot of times.
All right, sweet. Well, that's all I wanted to ask you. I appreciate you taking the time out, and I'm rooting for you guys. So
I appreciate it, man. Of course, I'm rooting for you too, man. It's glad to hear you're competing and making some strides. Keep it up.
Yep. I got to go back to my match now. They're all waiting on me, but I really do appreciate your time.
Yep. Have a good one, man. Enjoy your match. Have a good time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucid, for taking the time today to talk to everybody. I mean, from Professor, Mini Berserker, and even myself and the questions we had. I know we all are going to enjoy this when we watch this in the tournament and in the future, and I hope a lot of people learn a lot from this.
Of course, I love to hear that, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And thank you for having me.